Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast, where we focus on the journey, not the destination. Brought to you by the Baseball Blue Book app. Are you in the book? And now, your host, Eric Wobanaw. Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast. My name is Eric Wobanaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book, and great to get the new year started with Coach Jason Rathbun at St. Bonaventure. Coach Razz, how are you today in this 2023 new year?
23 new year, just coming off a big year in 22, so ready to see what 23 has for me.
Yeah, talk about a big year. National championships with your former team. New gig now. Really excited to hear your story. Like we like to talk about the journey, the coach's journey. Gives a real insight into kind of what you guys went through to get to where you are, and getting to know you a little bit before the recording. We've got a lot in common, so this is going to be a good one, guys. I think. I think you're going to find a lot of information that you can utilize, and learning about coaches' journeys and what they've had to go through to get to where they are. It's always a lot of fun. So before we start, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. It helps out in getting our message out to other people like you, and share it to others that you might think that would enjoy this. So, Coach, why don't we go ahead and get started? Why don't you do a quick introduction? I know we talked about your last gig, and now you're at St. Bonaventure. So just quick introduction, and why don't we let you go ahead and start where you want to in your journey.
Yeah, no, happy to be on. As we had talked about, I think my coaching journey started early in 2004, 2005 at Herkimer using the Baseball Blue Book, right? So in the fitness center, working behind the desk, thumbing through pages, writing down coaches' numbers and contacts to try to get, some connections to send players to. So it's kind of weird. It comes full circle here.
I love it.
Now
I love it. And I didn't even ask Coach Razz to say anything. It's always great to see the coaches kind of refer to what the Baseball Blue Book was in their life and how they used it. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we hope that we can continue to support you guys going forward. And we got some really cool things in store for you as we continue to roll out the development. But go ahead. Why don't we start there in 2003, 2004, kind of your coaching beginnings, right? Of what you did and how you got going.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how I got going. It just happened. I spent my time playing sports in high school. I was a three-sport athlete, played football, basketball, baseball. Obviously, I always loved baseball the most. Played for a legendary coach, Ted Schaff, in our area. Played at Brown, and he even played in the Cape Cod League when he was younger. So he was kind of a legend in our area. So the opportunity to play for him was always special. And we played at Little Falls Veterans Park, which is in Little Falls where the New York Penn Mets used to play. So there was always that tie, especially in the 80s. There was some really good talent that would come up through Little Falls, and you'd go over there and watch games. And, the Little League was behind that field. The Babe Ruth field was behind that field. So that Veterans Park area was always kind of special. So, growing up and being able to play like on a minor league field when you're in high school was pretty cool. Yeah. And I got to have some good moments, for sure. In high school, I threw a 12-inning game my senior year and, won 1-0 late into the night on a school night, but was able to have some great memories there and transitioned that out of high school. And I took a little different path, long line of military in my family, and needed to go in the service to get myself straight. And to be honest with you, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I needed some direction and some discipline. And I got that in the Army. They will do that for you. So
absolutely.
No issues with that, right?
Yep, that's great.
But yeah, long family line of generation of people that had served all the way back to the Civil War, where we had my ancestor was a general for the New York Army.
That's
so
awesome.
Most recently, my son served 4 years in the Coast Guard station in Boston, had a great experience. So
Well, we appreciate your service. We appreciate your service, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you. So I spent some time in Fort Stewart, Georgia. Played a little summer baseball down there when I was stationed, and was able to get a school interested in me. I went to a workout down at Florida Community College of Jacksonville with Coach Roy, who's a Hall of Fame coach down there. Went down there when I got out of the Army. I basically spent 6 months in Kuwait on a little deployment. I came back from deployment, ETS'd out of the Army. My time was up, and I headed down to play Division I JUCO in Florida. Probably a little bit over my head. For all of us that know now, the Florida JUCO circuit is incredible. You know, the talent that comes. I almost feel like in Florida, you either go Division I or you go JUCO.
Yeah.
So
totally true.
It's just an incredible amount of talent. And the year I went there, there was a lot of pitchers returning, and you know, they were really great to me and wanted to offer me a redshirt spot and, you know, kind of develop a little bit more. And, you know, my timeline was just a little different because of the time served in the Army. So I just wanted to play. So I decided to go home and play for Herkimer County Community College. FCCJ went to Grand Junction in the World Series. So I think they made the right decision. And for me, it was the right decision to go home and play there and, you know, go back to the roots of my tree and live at home, and started to raise my son there, and, you know, played baseball, and then accepted a scholarship to South Carolina to play for Kevin Nichols.
Oh, wow. Okay.
While at Herkimer, I played for Coach Testa. He coached there for about 9 years, kind of laid the foundation for the program, got a field on campus, you know, gave the program some stability. It kind of been in flux with coaches and things like that. So I left Herkimer, went to Erskine College, and Coach Nick became my baseball mentor. I mean, he taught me about hitting and life and school and professional baseball and just everything that comes with it, and learned a lot from him. And he ended up moving on to the College of Charleston, and then recently now at Middle Tennessee State.
When you bring up, Coach, when you bring up kind of taught you how to do it, when you say that, you know, one of the things that the questions that I get quite a bit is, you know, I want to be a coach. You know, where do we focus? What do I focus? What's the most important part of being a coach? And I know that's a tough question, but how would you respond to that?
I can tell you that when I went on my recruiting visit, I knew right away that he was the guy I wanted to play for. And I think that it literally happened like this. I arrived on campus. I walked into his office. He was in a chair playing Alex Lewis on Nintendo, RBI baseball, right? And they're talking smack to each other, and, you know, Nick ends up winning and, you know, throws the controller at him. You know, it was fun, you know, and it was like, you saw that player coach relationship,
right?
And it was like, that's what I want. You know, I want to be around somebody like that you could, you know, I was always good at because I was in the Army, I could always take criticism and instruction and get yelled at, and I never took it personally. So right. I could take the hard coaching and still see the good in people. You know what I mean? So I think that relationship piece, I really learned from him, while pushing buttons and trying to make people be better versions of themselves.
That's good. And especially coming with a military background, you're right. You know, the discipline, the tough love, you had that down, right? But it was the other balance, the other side of the emotional side, the relationship side, and bringing those things together. I think that's really important. Sorry, go ahead. You were.
No, and not only that, the statistical stuff was there, so you knew the fundamentals and things like that. And I think that he was a little ahead of his time on some of the things that he was talking about with hitting. So I just learned the fundamental piece, the relationship piece, how to operate budgets. I mean, I remember when because I literally graduated from Erskine and went right to Herkimer and started coaching. My coach at Herkimer basically said, you know, Razz, if you're getting done and you're interested in this, I'll retire from coaching.
Oh, wow.
And he was a teacher full time. Okay. So he's like, I'll just retreat to the teaching side and you can take over the baseball program. So I kind of knew my senior year that was going to be my next step. So like Nick was giving me budgets and fundraising stuff and, you know, here, use this, use that, you know, so I did go into it with some preparation of how things would operate. And I know that was at the D2 level, but it still helped me there at Herkimer. So yeah, I graduated from Erskine and landed at Herkimer in 2004, worked as an assistant in the spring. And then in 2005, fall of 4 took over, played in the spring of 2005 as the head coach. And yeah, that's where it started.
And that started what, 16 years of winning and eight coaches of the year type awards.
Yeah, 18 years at the school, 17 years coaching because of the COVID thing. So yeah, 17 years, 8 World Series. Multiple coach of the year, different levels of coach of the year stuff. So I lose track of that. I don't know.
Well, no, and that's that's a good thing, right? It's happened a number of times. What do you equate that to? I mean, you've got such a great background, right? You've got the military background. You've found some relationship type areas that you could help on that, and then you're starting to build this program and to make it yours. What were some of the things and what you attribute that to? Was it people in your life? Was it a specific focus of your process? What were some of the things that you could look back at and go, here's what I did right, here's what I did wrong, and for some advice for young coaches that are getting into this game?
The number one thing is, as a coach, you don't play the games, so you have to have the players, right? Like if you don't have the players, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. You've got to have talent. Yeah. So getting the right guys in that you wanted to kind of put together on the field and see what it would kind of shake out to be. And then obviously just being organized. I think that's a big piece, and never have that feeling that you know everything, right? Like I feel like once you feel like you know everything, then you should probably get out of coaching. Cause I just think it's always involved. It's always getting better, right? So you have to keep evolving as a coach and stay up on things. So, every year I would say that our program changes a little bit in some way. It's never the same program year to year. Obviously there's some fundamental pieces that we stick to and things like that. But, I just think it's about growing and being a learner and being open-minded. Kids come in and they feel very free to come in and bounce their ideas off.
Oh, that's
right.
Nice.
And sometimes they stick and sometimes I tell them they're crazy, it's very, and I think that Rob, I was watching your podcast with Rob Hardy, and somebody that we're very proud of all of his accomplishments. Yeah. And I just go back to what he said, and it's just being honest with your guys, right? Like if you can tell them the hard truths and have them be able to take that, then that you can coach them too, right? Like
great point.
If you can give them hard truths, they can take it. Then that you can get to the next step and kind of break them down of what you need them to do to be successful. So,
and that's a two-way street, right? I mean, you have to be willing to be honest, but they're also having to be willing to be open to the honesty, because that's the tough part, right? To find that perfect balance. And I think that's where Rob came across, is he was willing to take it, right? And walk out of your office. What did he say? And I think he even said, he goes, I don't know if Razz will even admit to having this conversation. But you know what? To have him walk out of your office and go, I got to do something, right? I'm down here. I got to make some adjustments in everything that I get. You could have done everything that you could have, but without the player making those changes and the adjustments, you're back to what you just said. Without the good players, without the talent, you can be the best coach in the world.
Yeah, I think to be a good coach, I think you have to be good at a lot of different things, right? Like people are like, oh, what are you really strong at? And it's like, well, a lot of things. I think I'm a good recruiter. I think I have an understanding of what I'm looking for fundamentally. I think that I'm good at relationship building. I think I'm organized. I think there's a lot of things that go into coaching, and I think that you can't just be strong in one area. You've got to be well versed in different areas. Right. That we're having a total complete program.
That's awesome.
So
now you also coach in the Cape Cod League, right?
I did.
You did.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
all right. Because you were the pitching coach for them.
This past summer. Yeah. The Cape special to me. I've been going out there for a very long time. I got married out there.
Wow.
I used to just go out and watch games. I would, even for Coach Chev at Brewster, a couple of years, I just went through BP. I was out there on vacation. I'm like, hey, I'll swing by and throw some beeps. I would love it.
Awesome.
And he's like, yeah, come on over. We're always looking for people to throw. So,
that's cool.
I remember going and doing that. And, and just thinking to myself, man, it would be really awesome one day if I could make it work. You know, at the junior college level, you wear a lot of hats.
Right.
And luckily for me, professionally, I grew pretty quickly from the fitness. I only stayed in the fitness center for about 2 years and then moved to the housing side of things and then became the director of residence life. So I was in control of 700 kids living on campus. So it wasn't necessarily easy for me to just take the summer off and go to the Cape and coach. So, and it just kind of fell into place where COVID taught us to be able to be remote and still get our job done. If you know, shouldn't matter if you're in the office or at home, but if you're motivated to work, you're going to work, right? One way or another. Right. So it gave us an avenue to kind of say, well, if I, you know, work from the Cape and do the things that I can do during the summer, maybe I can make this work. I'd like to try it one time, you know? So I ended up committing to Chev early last year, like right around the convention time. I think it was at the convention where I saw him there and I was like, all right, so here's the details. Like, I'm the pitching coach, right? Like, not the bullpen. Like, you're going to, he was like, no, you're the guy. You're going to replace Scott Landers, who moved on to Bourne to be their head coach. And I was like, all right, man, let's do it. And we shook hands and hugged and, you know, ended up working out that spring. We ended up winning a national championship.
Man,
so
awesome.
It just ended up being a crazy 2002 where we were, you know, our school finally made it to the World Series and won it. You know, we won the national championship. I think I came home for 5 days, maybe 4 days. And then I was packing my bags and headed to the Cape to start practice and evaluating out there. And, you know, it was all of a sudden we're kind of parlaying some experiences here. And St. Bonaventure was a school that had a coach for 36 years. Yep. So you never thought that this opportunity was necessarily going to happen. But it opened up. I had sent kids here. I thought Western New York, it's close to home. I'll throw my name in the hat, see what happens. Well, as I've done before with other jobs.
Right.
But
well, you talked about you talked about before when we were before recording. You were talking about you didn't think maybe it wasn't going to happen. Expand on what it was, right? It was it making it to a D1 coaching job, or was it this particular program? What was? It sounds like you had some goals going through Herkimer, and obviously had an incredible career as a coach there, and obviously, we're at the top of the level in the program. What were some of your personal goals to make it to this next level, and talk about that a little bit?
For sure. I think as a coach, you always kind of want to see what you can do against, the best. And I had been so many places and visited and seen Division I and I played Division II and down south. Right. So, I don't necessarily want to say that Division I was like the ultimate, like that's the only thing that I wanted. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely like the highest, like professional's not really an interest to me. I enjoy working with kids and recruiting and developing kids like that. So it was always like, man, watching regionals and things like that. It's like, man, I feel like I could have an impact and do something, and maybe just as a pitching coach, not necessarily as the head coach, but I felt like I could have an impact. So those questions were kind of going on in my mind for a while. And then I think that the Cape kind of made me realize that I need to take this chance. Like I gotta really go for it, because the relationships that I was building in the Cape were with the best players in the country. And I was like, if I can connect with those guys, I think I can connect with any baseball student athlete for the most part, because I've already dealt with the junior college kids who have so many issues they have to work through just to be successful. So, kind of was like, made me hungry to try that next step. And I definitely put my name out there for, Division II jobs back in the conference I played in, and it just, nothing ever ended up happening for me. So I thought to myself, man, 15, 16 years of winning and putting up numbers, I was like, it might not happen. I think sometimes the four-year schools kind of, as far as hiring junior college guys, they think it's easy, and it's junior college. There's no rules, so, it's easy to do it down there. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, it prepared me for this for sure. and the turnover in junior college is so crazy, right? Like you're bringing in half a new team every year, where you're recruiting 15, 20 kids a year on top of trying to move on 15, 20 kids, right? So you're trying to find schools for them to go to, but you're also, and making sure they're the right fit, right? It's not about just sending them to the best school. It's about sending them to the school where they're going to be successful.
Absolutely.
While recruiting a whole new team in. So,
well, that's that's the interesting part about junior colleges, and we'll spend a little bit of time on that. But you're absolutely right. You're recruiting players in, but you're also acting as the recruiter to help place them in other places. Very unique and different than what a D1 or other 4-year schools. What do outside of that, and more particularly not from a coach's perspective, but from a player's perspective, what are the biggest differences? Because you had just mentioned, hey, I could relate to these kids at the Cape League, and they're the top. They're the top players in the country. I was able to relate with them just as I was before. What makes the players a D1 or a JUCO or anything in between? What really differentiates? Is it just talent, or is it academics? What's the real difference between the players?
Again, I don't think it's one answer, right? Like I don't think it's just the talent, but it's definitely the talent.
Right.
I don't think it's just academics, but it's definitely the academics.
Got it.
So, I don't think it's just work ethic, but it's definitely work ethic. So, it was kind of, those were the things that I would tell kids at Herkimer. It's like, okay, if you want to be a Division I player, there's 3 things that you have to do. You have to be over a 3.0, right? Because if you're not a 3.0 here at Herkimer, which is willing to work with you and help you, and they will do things for you to be successful. So if you completely don't do well academically, you're never going to handle Division I. Right. The next piece was statistical data, right? Like, what were your numbers as a freshman? Did you have 125 at bats? Did you hit 10 home runs? Do you throw 90 miles per hour? Did you have 5 wins? Did your ERA, what were your strikeout to walk ratio? So those measurables play a part, right? But it's not the end all be all, but it plays a part. Academics, GPA. And the next part is work ethic. You could be naturally gifted, but if you're not grinding, and that's one of the biggest things that I'm excited to see is, like, I know at this level that every program works hard, like all Division I schools work hard, where junior college, it's difficult. There's, especially Division III junior college, there's schools that don't necessarily have the resources or coaches to put as much time in as we did at Herkimer. So, I think that you have to kind of line those things up and realize where a player's at and try to make the best decision for them to go be successful. And in that part, right, it was kind of my ploy to employers. It's like, yeah, I know that I haven't been recruiting Division I players at Herkimer, but I've been pushing players to Division I from Herkimer. So I know what a Division I player looks like. And I know what it takes to play at that level because they've moved on and been successful.
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, you may not have recruited ones that play D1 initially. And I think that's what I've learned is really the JUCO or the community level. It's really the development. These are a lot of D1 caliber players. When you talk about the talent, there's just other issues that maybe they need to develop in. It could be academics. It could be, like you said, time management or work ethic. But you're still recruiting guys that have the potential of making that to D1, which I
or just the biology of your body,
exactly
right? Like, that's some kids, and I tell every kid that you don't really see the physical change where you start to become a man until the winter of your sophomore year, right? Like all the freshmen I get look skinny, right? And then by the time they're sophomores, like the winter, you're like, wow, their back's starting to fill out. Their thighs are getting thicker. Yeah. So physically, they take that jump, right? So maybe they're not physically mature enough out of high school to play Division I, but they buy themselves 2 years, right? They buy themselves 2 years, get in a college program. They get bigger, stronger, faster. And then the Rob Hardys happen.
Absolutely.
78 miles per hour, right? 78 miles per hour. And then 2 years later, he's 88 to 90.
Exactly.
So those, it's such a good avenue for kids that maybe they're not getting that Division I scholarship, and that's their goal. Like, listen, I want to play Division I. It's like, okay, it may not happen for you right now, but what's your path to getting there, right? And I tell kids, maybe if they're short for me now, it's like, hey, go JUCO, go prove it, go put up some numbers, and we'll be following you. You know.
Awesome. Hey, so let's talk a little bit more about what you just were saying about, you know, you've had kids in there that maybe need some development, and you've recommended potentially going to the JUCO level. I'd like to spend a little bit more time talking about that, because we also interview a lot of kids, and it's very interesting because they don't understand this, right? They think D1, man, I got D1, caliber, playing. I've got the statistics, I've got the things, but they don't have the development. They haven't grown into their body yet. Is that really the big difference between the D1 and the JUCO? Is that those couple years of the opportunity for them to kind of grow into that position?
No question. I mean, that's the stories we love to tell, right? The Greg Ferrone stories. Now, Greg Ferrone was our best pitcher last year. He had some scholarship offers to some small Division II schools. And it was like, Greg, you're a left-handed pitcher who's, 6'4", 190 pounds, like you're 82, like
right.
Who knows what you're going to be in 2 years, and all of a sudden he's, the national pitcher of the year. He's throwing 94. He's 6'5", 235 pounds. And he's at Louisville right now, and his whole life is set up by just making a decision to kind of bet on himself. And that's the part that I kind of tell kids, like, what are you willing to bet on yourself? Because that's what it takes to get to Division I. If you're going to go the JUCO route, you got to be willing to kind of say, all right, I'm going to go JUCO and prove it. And there's so many Greg Ferrone stories, maybe not to the level of Louisville, but
right.
The Rob Hardy to Binghamton is a great story as well, Yep. So, Rob Hardy got to go to Binghamton and pitch against Auburn in a regional. So, I mean, those are amazing experiences that would have never happened if they didn't go the junior college route. And here's the other thing I'll tell you is there's not a lot of freshmen that are ready to play Division I. Very few, right? I think even for my class here on a team that's rebuilding, coming off a really bad year, right? We've only got one freshman that's breaking the lineup, and we have 15 freshmen here. So
interesting.
It's difficult to break it as a freshman. So you might not get a lot of time. Yes, you can develop, and maybe you can have an impact as a sophomore, but going to play 2 years of junior college, you're playing. Like, you're playing as a freshman. You're getting 130, 150 bats. You're playing as a sophomore. Maybe you're competing for a national championship. Like, how many people get to compete for a national championship, right? It doesn't matter what level you're at. Like, it's hard to those experience, like the experiences that our guys had. I don't care where they go. It's going to be tough to match that. And I know it because we have kids that tell us, like, been doing it for 18 years. There's kids that have went to the World Series with us that have went on to great schools that have said, man, I really miss Herkimer and that experience there. So, it's about doing the best thing for you if you're willing to have the confidence in yourself. And at the end of the day, those guys, they're the ones that are going to be successful, right? So if they're willing to go junior college to prove it, they put up the numbers, there's something to be said about that. And that's why we're interested in junior college
I think
kids.
That's a really good point, Coach. Kind of the correlation between your story and the JUCOs to D1 players. You had talked about the things that you had to learn at the JUCO level from a coach to now do the D1, right? You had to wear so many hats. I always love talking to JUCO guys because they're doing the fundraiser. They don't realize coaching is. I think I've had a couple guys say, if I'm able to be on the field for 15% of my job, that's a good thing. It's very rarely are you out there doing the things what people think is coaching, and I think you kind of correlate that with the JUCO level, the players building that experience, the development, understanding what it takes to be that top tier player. It's almost the same as that JUCO, learning all the ins and outs of a coach. And now you're at the St. Bonaventure. You're probably not wearing as many hats. You're more responsible, but you have other people that are helping you in those areas. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, for sure. And I can tell you that I think even my staff here at St. Bonaventure, likes to be around me sometimes, because for me, this is like unbelievable, right? It's like, oh, I got this person that does that and this person that does
Right.
that. And, it's like, we got so many resources, and for in St. Bonaventure's eyes, they're like, we're low level Division I. So we don't necessarily have all the resources that other Division I schools have. So I'm like, yeah, but for me, this is like, I've got everything I need,
Right.
So I think it's refreshing to them that I love the fact that I have help in different areas of fundraising or, travel, or, I mean, honestly, just having a full-time assistant coach is cool. So, it's, and I think that you're right. I mean, I had to do everything at Herkimer, as far as everything, planning spring trips, fundraising. I mean, we fundraised 4 times our budget. So, it's just all those things you learn to do at the junior college level. Well, I'll be honest with you, when I came here, it was like, all right, I know how to do all this stuff, as far as like building a program, like the rule stuff, the hours of contact. And, that's why we have compliance office. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Am I good? So we've got, people to rely on for this transition for me. So it's been great. I mean, you say that we're not on the field, but for me, I've been on the field for every group of every position since Labor Day started in the fall for us. And that's just because I'm trying to, build what our core fundamentals are and the things that we want to do. So I spent a lot of time on the field this fall, teaching, learning, conversations, getting to know people. So it's been fun, but no question that the junior college circuit and has helped me for this job and being able to, I don't have a director of baseball ops. Right. I don't have, all of these other things that some of the larger schools have, but that's cool to me. I'm still going to go out and play these teams. And we've done it. I mean, our schedule this year was kind of pretty much set, but, for 24 and 25, we're going to go play the Tennessee, the Vanderbilt, the Louisville, we're going to go play those schools because it's what that's a life experience for me and for our players. So I want them to go see the best. So we're excited. We're really excited about what we're building here and the things that are happening and the support. It's been great.
I think it's awesome. Really neat to see the administration, kind of follow the same path as what we're seeing a lot in college baseball, right? From the JUCO to the D1. You're a perfect example of taking that time, even if it wasn't, it wasn't portrayed as a development time. You certainly developed into a top tier coach through all the experience that you had. And I think that bodes well with you just from a recruiting perspective. Hey, this is what I had to go through to do this. And so when you kind of put those things together, now that you are looking at D1, what have you gone out and have you recruited this class, or is this all kind of in the place?
So we actually had our early signing period, and we ran out. We have 13 commitments now for next year. So it was our assistant coach had a couple guys, I think a few guys on the board that were interested, kind of went and figured out if those guys were the right fit for what I was looking for. We had conversations, and we definitely, we kept some of the kids that were on his board and, decided to pursue them and kind of make a hard push. And, and we were able to grab a couple of the guys that he liked. And then obviously just from all the connections of the junior college circuit, I was able to go grab some good junior college kids as well as some good high school kids from some different areas. So we're really excited because we are a young team. So I feel like if we can use this year as a learning experience for all of us, the young team and myself as a first year coach at this level, and, kind of hopefully get some momentum headed into next year, and then boom, have that solid, class coming in to kind of beef up our talent level. I mean, I think we're on the right path. I was telling my assistant BJ before the winter break here, it was like, literally like the week before Christmas, I was like, all right, man, like I'm feeling caught up.
Okay.
Like I feel like I got a good idea of what we are as a team and a program and some goals that I have and things I want to do. And, it was perfect timing, kind of headed into the break, spent some good time with some family over the winter break, and I fly out tonight to Nashville for the ABCA, which is always the kind of start of it for like, all right, spring's here. It's still winter, but
it is. It truly is the kickoff. It's the kickoff for baseball season, which is awesome. We haven't talked a lot about your philosophy and kind of the process that you go through. We know that honesty is something that's really important, and we got that from Rob, and I certainly appreciate that whole story because that was great. Spend a few minutes just talking about what players should expect. Being coached by Coach Razz. I mean, what are they expected? Kind of just summarize who you are and what makes you unique in your position.
I think the word that I've always kind of hung on is demanding accountability, right? I think you have to be accountable for your actions. And it's really about having understanding of what I'm looking for. So like fundamentally, like, there's certain things that I like to do, right? So it's like, this is what I think we need to do to be successful at the plate. These are the things that we need to do on the mound just to be healthy and to move correctly and things like that. So it's really been about informing the team of my expectations of what I need for them to do to be successful, and then holding them accountable to get to that point, right? Like, these are the things we need to do to get to that point. So I need you to hold you accountable. Like our pitch example is obviously I'm pretty well known for our pitching stuff. And I would say that even at the pitching side of things, like, yes, we have a program, but it's a baseline program for the pitchers, right? The reality of it is we want the pitchers to have their own pitching program that's individualized for themselves and that they hold themselves accountable to, right? Like, because every pitcher is going to be on a different day, right? But depending on when they're throwing. So there's a lot of self-accountability that comes with them doing their proper day and everything that's required of that day, or adding things to their program. And I think that's the thing I try to tell them is like, listen, the great ones own their program. Like, they take leadership of it. They understand what they want to do. They add stuff to it. They add stretches. They add workouts. They add, and you'll see them, like, they'll do all their core fundamental things that I want from them. And then they do extra stuff to get better that helps them for what they need. Right. And that's really what I want pitchers to do, is have that understanding. My concern with them is more about the flow of their body being balanced and being smooth, and any inefficiencies that I see that may create injuries. I'll work on those things. But I think it's really about them understanding how their body's supposed to move for them, and then giving them a program that's going to help them reach their goals. And so holding them accountable. And then on the hitting side, it's really just about what's our philosophy? What type of offensive game are we looking to produce out there? We're big backspin, like create backspin with a baseball. So can you do this? Can I put you in a cage on a tee and can you create backspin for me? And just things like that we can hold them accountable to working towards. And then that's just the accountability piece for them. And then my job in the sense is to motivate them with that, as well as the conditioning piece, the mental piece, trying to build them up. It's a pretty basic military philosophy, breaking them down, building it back up, So, and that's what we do. We spend all fall. I don't mess with them in the fall as far as like, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. Like, no, the first month we're here, it's like, all right, we're going to stretch and throw and condition you, but you're going to go play each other and work it out. And then, when you fail or you're successful, we're going to fine tune things and help you become better for the spring, but allowing them to go out there and fail a little bit. So that way they can take coaching. The worst thing you can do is get a kid on campus. You break them down the first week. Yeah. It's like, all right, you got to change all this, right? And then they go out and play for a month and a half and they hit $110, right? And then you have your individual meeting with them at the end of the fall, and you're like, bro, I don't think you're going to get a lot of at-bats this year because you hit $110 in the fall. You really struggle. And it'd be like, yeah, but coach, you changed my swing. Right. I didn't even have a chance to do me and show you what I can do. I was too busy working on, and it's like, I learned very early to kind of avoid those conversations by allowing people to kind of do them. So it's all a part of a process that you have as a coach and what you're looking for. But it does go back to some of those military ideas of, allowing them to go out and fail and breaking them down, telling them all these things they need to work on after they've failed or had a little bit of success, and then building them back up for the spring. And hopefully they, for us, it's leaving the gym and hitting the field, not necessarily being on the field.
No, that's
ready, because we're
that is great advice. And, take a couple steps back. You were talking about from the pitching perspective. I haven't heard it that way, and I really appreciate it. But you talked about you have your own program, kind of that macro program for St. Bonaventure and what you want to do. But every one of your pitchers has to have their own program. And to work inside of their own program, but you bring that back. I really like that. What are some things that kids can do in the high school time to help develop some of those programs that you're looking for?
So even for us, for the winter right now, not every kid has plyo balls or shoulder tubes or wrist weights or shoulder spheres or whatever the tools that we have that we use to kind of build the arm, right? But I think that there's a lot of things that you can do to keep active, right, with your own body weight and movement. So we're even right now in the winter, we're still throwing to keep our arms active, but I've kind of cut out the weighted stuff. It's more like, Donnelly exercises and Tom House's POWs and playing catch. And so it's a lot more of stretching and getting your, not literally, but your push-ups and sit-ups, getting the
basics, right.
And to just keep it going. Right. So I think for high school kids, and the past few years when I've really understood what I was looking for, I started to venture off and grabbed a couple local high school kids and was like, all right, why don't you come with me and we'll work on some things and see if we can develop you or whatever. And, a big part of it is you don't need all of these tools to give yourself a program, right? There's natural body weight movements, things that you can do to kind of prepare yourself, and I like that model, and it's it goes back to why do, so many inner city kids play basketball? Well, we don't have a lot of equipment to buy, they just need a basketball and a place to go play. And for baseball, it's how can we get more people doing things,
That's great.
And providing resources. You don't need all of this expensive stuff to necessarily be successful, but it plays a part. It all plays a part. But research, just again, learning what fits your body, what you can do, what you have the resources.
No, I think that's a great point. That's a great point. You always read stories of guys coming out of the DR and different areas in Latin America.
What's the video? There's the viral Twitter kid that's, I don't even know where he's from, but I think he's from Africa, but he's carrying tires. He's a catcher, and you see him throwing bricks.
Yes.
And it's
and you've also heard, you hear stories that they hit bottle caps. I think it was Big Poppy back in the, he would have bottle caps, and that's how he learned how to hit.
I saw a kid from Atlanta, right? And he built his own mound in his backyard, right? You could see it was he just put whatever he had together to put a mound in this really small backyard. And he kept videoing himself of trying to pitch, and he was 82. It was funny because it was a funky motion, it's not typically what you would teach. And then all of a sudden he kept building and he hit 90, and I remember one time he threw the ball after the third video and it was 84, and he's that's not good enough. And you just saw him find a way, and that would be my, we talked earlier about advice to coaches. That's my advice for players and coaches. Find a way.
That's
it's not about create your own opportunities, find a way and create your own opportunities, no matter how long it takes, 18 years to get to this, find a way to get in. And then when you get in, just don't worry about everything else. That's what we've done here. We've just like the horses, right? We put the
blinders on
and and we're just blinkers, blinders, something like that. I should know that better, being Saratoga up here. My roommate in college is in the horse business, so I should have known. but yeah, we're trying to keep those blinders on
Yep.
and look forward and just work
Yep.
and, do our thing. We're not necessarily worried about what everyone else is doing. We're just trying to prepare our guys.
I think that is great advice. You find a way. I mean, excuses are prevalent. You can find an excuse anywhere that you look.
Even my experience in the Cape, like, yeah, Cape, I'm not trying to cry about living in the Cape for a summer, but I was in a 1-bedroom in-law apartment, right? And my wife and 2 daughters came out and spent a month and a half with me out there. Yep. And, my girls sleeping on mattresses on the floor, crawling into bed with us, in a little studio apartment, just making it work, right? Finding a way, make it work. Like, yeah, we have a beautiful home with lots of rooms and stuff like in space, but it was like, this is what we need to do to get this experience under our belt and as a family. And we just made it work,
Like that's great advice, Coach. It's the grind. It really epitomizes baseball in general, right? I always laugh. It's the reason why we keep stats in baseball, because it is the long-term goals. It's not the short-term goals. Because you can look at a week and it could be failure. And that's the same thing in anything. You could try something for a week and it may not work. You got to stay consistent. You got to find a way, make it work. And I think that's fantastic. The other thing that you were talking about is the military type, the breaking down. I loved what you were talking about from the perspective of you can't automatically bring kids in and make them change. They made it to the level that they are for a reason, and you saw something in them, right? So letting them kind of play that out and then utilize that as an opportunity to build upon or break down and build on. It's the same thing in the way I look at it, but I think that's really, really great advice. Wrapping up, we could talk. I think we could talk for another hour, and I think this has been just a really good conversation. I always like to ask the coaches, and obviously you being new, maybe you'll have a different perspective of what makes St. Bonaventure a unique place to play, because you certainly chose it, right? They chose you, but you also chose them. It goes both ways, and I think the same thing goes with players, right? Coaches choose players, but players choose coaches. Why should players take a look at St. Bonaventure? What makes you guys unique? What makes the campus different? The lifestyle? Coach Nyman always talks about the 4 areas: the academics, the financial, the social, and then the baseball side. I always like to kind of preface my question with that. What makes St. Bonaventure a place where kids should be interested in looking at?
Well, I think just like anything else, it's about the fit, right? I don't think St. Bonaventure is meant for everybody, right? I just don't. I think it's a unique place. You're basically on top of mountains up here. Western New York, the weather can be cold, but there is some magic to this place, and it's a faith-based place, right? So I think there's definitely a strong power here, and you can feel it. And there's a strong pride, like Bonaventure alum are nuts. Like they love this. I mean, they love this place, right? And you can tell when once you're here, right? I don't think that I would leave a place that I grew up with all of my friends, my family, my forever home, pull my kids out of school, if I didn't think that this place had a chance to be special. And we've got new leadership in here. Our athletic director, Joe Manhertz, is brilliant. I knew from the moment I met him that was a guy that I could work for. And he's had great stops at Syracuse, Duke, Ohio State, and he knows how to work. And he's out there working just as hard as his coaches are. And he's always on the grind. Awesome. So you want to work for somebody that's going to, support you and work hard. And I think that he has a vision here. He's only been here a little over a year now. I think the fact that we're in a conference like the Atlantic 10 that's had a lot of success, I think that's intriguing. I think that the opportunity to build something is fun. I think we had the second worst winning percentage in the country last year. So, there's there's not many other ways to go but
up.
but up.
Yep.
So, you know, I think there's opportunity here to do that. And I think, you know, it's a really great place where I feel like you can send your son or daughter and leave campus feeling good about it.
That's
you know,
good.
It's a small community.
That's good.
Everybody knows each other. There's a lot of pride. I mean, listen, you come to one basketball game, you'll see the difference.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing like it. That is awesome. Coach, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you joining the Baseball Blue Book podcast today. Looking forward to watching your program. Certainly, if you could get anywhere near the success that you had at your last stop, that would be awesome to see. And I'm just looking forward to watching the program. Last thing, besides the family and that, who are some of the real influences that you that had in your life, and kind of who you attribute your success and making it to this level?
I mean, there's so many, right? My wife, my father, my family, my coaches that I've had in my life, my supervisors in the military who taught me about diversity and life, and there's so much there to draw back on. I don't think it's any. I think to be successful, you need a lot of people behind you and a lot of people that you rely on. And I'm blessed to have a lot of people that I love in my life. My friends, I mean, once I got the job, I've had friends drive out here for weekends just to come spend time with me and my family to help our transition. So there's so many people that are behind it, but you know, it takes what do they say? It takes a village to raise a family.
It does. That's the truth. I think it's great. Coach Razz, thank you so much. I appreciate it and hope to see you in Nashville in a couple days.
It's been my pleasure. I really look forward to getting to see you down there possibly. And thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you.